Thanks for watching live or listening back to this show from Teachers Talk Radio. You can catch up with all our shows by visiting our YouTube channel or by listening back at ttradio.org. Don't forget to like and subscribe to enjoy more live education conversation from TTR. We hope you enjoy this show.
Outstanding and world-class vision and world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Twilight Show. So my guest and I, we've just managed to pop in at the last minute, as you do. So we've been rushing around today. It's been one of those days, guys. Today, I've been really busy doing this, that, and the other. I don't even want to get started. We've got a lot to talk about. I'm really happy to say that I've got a returning guest, and I've got Jannick with me once again. How are you doing, Jannick?
Yeah, great. Jannick with a Y, by the way. It's the French one, not the Polish one.
Oh, with a Y. Jannick with a Y. Oh, okay. Good. Right. It's really good to see you though. And it's been a few weeks since we last had a chat. So Jannick and I have got a few things to catch up on. And we're just going to have a little bit of a conversation because a lot happens, doesn't it, out there in Eduland in quite a short space of time. Things kick off. You turn your back for a minute, and it's all kicked off again. Now, what's interesting is that when Jannick and I were talking about the show this evening, Jannick sort of independently from me came up with a particular comment from a celebrity chef. And I think he did an interview or something, and he was talking about dyslexia. And it's one of those things where you see a headline or you see a tweet and everyone starts getting a bit annoyed and thinking, hang on, someone else is sticking their oar in and interfering. He's already taken away our turkey Twizzlers, and now he's getting involved again. So Jannick and I are going to be talking about that. Also, the other side of that coin, with the social mobility chair. Now, I found this particular article quite interesting because an article was written a week or so ago, just under a week ago, I think. And he was basically saying that school leaders should shut up about helping disadvantaged students in particular with things like buying them meals, washing their clothes, and that sort of thing. And it's one of those situations where, again, you see a headline, and I sometimes wonder whether headlines and people say things to get a bit of attention. So the headline was that we should shut up. But when you actually dig into what he meant, I think it's interesting to look at some of the nuance behind what he was actually saying. So yeah, we're going to get into that in just a minute. So I thought it'd be interesting because I know that Jannick and I have worked a similar time in teaching. Both of us have worked, I should imagine, with plenty of students who would be considered disadvantaged or pupil premium. Or free school meals, and the names have changed over the years. And I do remember there being a time, I might as well start with that, when I remember having to put on lesson plans, what I was going to do to cater for my pupil premium students. I don't know if you remember that, Jannick, doing similar.
Yes, of course. I mean,
And it's something.
Like, actually in your lesson plan, the lesson plan that you would provide to whoever was observing you or
Yeah, exactly. So if it was one of those situations where you had to dust off the lesson plan because someone was coming in or whatever, I seem to remember that was one of the categories. If you looked at the classic lesson plan, it was objectives and then, you know, what the teacher was doing and what the pupil was doing, but also things like who were the SEND students, who was the gifted and talented, or and there was all sorts of things that they wanted you to look at. And I seem to remember there was a time when they wanted us to be really highly acutely aware of who our pupil premium students are. So I suppose, Jannick, I wondered what you thought. Are we, and going back to this article, the social mobility chair, I can't remember his name, Alan Francis, I think his name is. And he, so what do you think about his comments? Do you think that we maybe focus a bit too much on the students that are disadvantaged? Do we make too big a deal of it? Because that's what he's saying. He's basically saying if we keep saying we're helping, we're making a big deal of it. To be fair to him, he's not saying we shouldn't help them. He's saying that we should help them, but we shouldn't make such a big deal of it.
Yes, I mean, it's very difficult. He also says that people always seem to want money rather than proper actions. I kind of agree on that. Money is not, you can teach. Yeah, I mean, the comment obviously was unfortunate and it made him look like an abs. So of course, us teachers and to be honest, it was inappropriate. I would agree with that. I mean, and I don't know how it came across, or as you say, maybe it's there as a title to make sure that us teachers, we're very good at
being a bit reactive. We are a little, aren't we?
We're not. Well, I can't say. I was going to say we're not very good at taking criticism, but that is kind of beyond criticism. So yes, it's quite right that it should be called out on that. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's changed. I think in terms of teaching, we always got to be aware of our pupil premium and our disadvantaged students, because we do need to be aware of them and making sure that we cater for them. So that's part of our job. I agree on that. I think it's all the rest. Schools have taken on an awful lot of jobs, of parents' jobs. There's no doubt about that. If you work in a school, you will know that. A lot of social. I mean, when I see what. I think I work a lot, but when I see what the people in my school in terms of the safeguarding team and co have to deal with, I'm thinking, wow, I'm not sure I could do that myself. And sometimes, it's easy. I look at them and thinking, oh yeah, well, they're not teaching. But tell you what, they spend so much time with parents, with, some ludicrous stuff. The amount of students who are on some kind of plans whose parents are, whose dad or mom not allowed to contact them, or all these. And we've got to deal with that. Because it affects our school, and we've got 2 or 3 people full-time job, which is to go and talk to parents about all these things. And I suppose in a way we are stretched. So, but I think when you said it's not money we want, it's staff to deal with it. So I don't like the way we want more money. No, we want more staff. Yeah, it does mean more money, but I think the wording is important, because money can be wasted in education on so many things. If you get 100 grand and you just spend it on nothing, it's nothing. But if you get one good member of staff on less, that will make a big difference.
And some would say too many consultants, maybe too many people who are paid 100k plus. I think that sometimes comes under the spotlight when you have a multi-academy trust, and then you have people at the top of the trust. Dare we get into that? I suppose we all.
I was going to say no.
I think we'll leave that one for now. But
that's great. You say a lot has happened, but I've seen the pens, I've seen the toilet again, and I've seen the concerts again. We can talk about it forever. Same things,
It cycles, isn't it? Yeah, the pens and it all just goes round and round and round. If you hear, it's like fashion, isn't it? If you're here long enough, it comes back into fashion, doesn't it?
And some schools do struggle. And yes, I was seeing that article about the the shutters in the toilet. That was just today, like in a school in New York. So parents were up in arms about this. And I mean, I know the school says it's outstanding school. It's been there. It's been outstanding for a long time, and they've had shutters on the toilet. Outstanding school. We have shutters on the toilet, and we are in all categories. So,
Yeah, I mean, we decided we have shutters on the downstairs toilets. We decided just because of the layout of the building, it was better that they go upstairs because they were coming in and it was just causing problems. And but yeah, I think schools, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because you want to listen, you want to be seen to listen to parents and other stakeholders who aren't necessarily seeing what's going on a day-to-day. And it's very hard to sort of square that up with someone who sees all the problems as a teacher. You see a lot of the challenges and on the support staff, as you've said, and the people who work in the safeguarding team, and they actually see what students have to deal with. I mean, like you said, mentioning about students, I heard a story. We don't get all the information for various reasons. It doesn't always filter through to us teachers, does it? So I heard a story about a young lady who's in my form, and it was quite a sad story. It turned out that she had been evicted, or her parents had been evicted from a house. She'd gone to live with her nan, or to move with her nan, but she didn't even have a bed. So she was sleeping on her nan's sofa, and she didn't even have a quilt. So the school bought her a quilt, and I heard this and I had a little bit of a sob. I know it's weird to say that online, but that really caught me, and I thought, wow, this child is dealing with this problem, and I had no idea that was what she was dealing with. So the disadvantage is, it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one because this guy is saying, Alan Francis is saying, I suppose he accepts. I mean, he says a lot of things, some of which I think are fair enough, and others I think maybe I don't really agree with. But I'll come back to one of them to some of those.
Do you know, nothing is black and white, and that's the problem. You say something and people take it as black, and people take it as white, and then straight on it's falls apart, isn't it? I mean,
the nuance is lost, isn't it? Especially if you're on social media, as we know. The nuance is lost. It's either you're on my team or you're on the other team. There's no sort of there's no middle ground.
And I do believe that's more online than in real life. In real life, I'm sure some of these people that are on Twitter, you probably work along with them fine, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
In real life, you've got to make compromise. You can't be black and white. It just doesn't work, does it? I mean,
yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And if you speak to somebody, a lot of the people who you argue with on Twitter, if you got them in a room and sat them down, you'd probably find that you agree on more things than you disagree on.
Yeah, I think so.
But people feel the need to be sort of make that their. Some people even make that their, I don't know, their identity is that they're there to fight for people we've sent. People will go online, parents of students who are autistic and things like that will go online, and quite rightly they'll want to talk about the struggles and strains that they have, which is definitely understandable. Sorry?
Yeah, my case, yes. It's about me, my case, my child.
Yeah, exactly. So they take it very personally. So then they're not prepared to listen to any sort of I don't know, intermediate position, let's say, are they? There's no sort of willingness to compromise at all. But yeah, so this idea was, and I'm just going to read a couple of things from this. He says, everyone's always supported pupil premium, but be discreet about it when you do it. And of course, everybody does it when you need to do it, but stop making out that your life is difficult, because what they're saying is the results here are not that good, because look at the people that come here. So what he's saying is that by constantly drawing attention to pupil premium, it's almost like you're you've already consigned someone who's from a disadvantaged background to fail. That is his point, I suppose. If we start to get into the mindset, I mean, I don't think I agree with this point, because as teachers, we work with all sorts of students. But that is his point, that if we get this idea in our head as a society, maybe, that people from a particular background where maybe there's been some poverty, or and we write them off, perhaps. So we're saying you're disadvantaged, so we don't expect you to get very good qualifications or do very well at school. I don't know. What do you think of that? Do you think that by highlighting the issues with disadvantage, we are creating a narrative that disadvantaged students are never going to achieve?
No, I don't know. I don't think so. I hope not. But I mean, you know, again, it's not. I think some people do. Yes, some people do. You know, wear that as a badge of honor. So even some kids, I think, will use that as an excuse because they're lazy, because they don't want to work. And it's our job to raise their aspiration and to make you know, to shape them, to challenge them on that. That's our job. So you know, with all the problem with all of our data, it is sometimes makes our job difficult, because yes, sometimes you look at that data and treat people differently. You know, it goes both ways. It's useful to know, and sometimes it's just not. You know, when you teach a class, you want to teach them all the same thing and don't make any excuse for anything. Exactly. Well, after that, you know your students, and of course, you if someone is struggling, you help them. But I think sometimes, sometimes it makes things difficult. Sometimes I think you make excuses for people, and you end up not challenging them when they're actually perfectly capable. You know, like.
I think you've nailed it there, actually. I think you've nailed it, because I'm just thinking again, if I know that a student's from a particular background, I maybe know that one of the parents is in prison, or one of the parents is absent for whatever reason, or there's some kind of trauma, you know, in that child's life. Yeah, like you say, there's two ways that can go. I could feel very sorry for them and lower my expectations and say, oh, no wonder they're not behaving, you know, because of X, Y, Z. Or I could say, well, actually, no, I'm going to be the person who puts those boundaries in place for you, because you don't have that person in your life. So I'm going to be that person who puts those boundaries in place. So I mean, it's an interesting one. Sorry.
Isn't that we are, as teachers, we're just attentive to our students. We teach, and when something doesn't work, we just know, we change, we adapt, we talk to the kids, and we don't always get it right. That's why we've got these, I mean, we've all upset some students. I have, and well, tough, things happen, and then when that happens and the parents complain, well, that's fine. No hands up. I didn't know. I'm sorry. I apologize. What do you want me to do? Can I make it right? Okay, fine. Like, I think that, that's, we are human as well. That was reading, I think that there was the argument about, us complaining that we work so much. Well, okay, we do work hard. I think the big difference in our job is that it's draining, because we are on the front scene 4 hours a day minimum dealing with students. We do not have a single moment to we don't have a break. When you in an hour in a lesson, that is draining. It is tiring. And okay, you could work long hours in other jobs as well, but yeah, you can have a coffee when you want. You don't have to deal with 30 kids there with all their needs. That is, I don't think people realize that bit of people see, yeah, we work long hours as well. Yeah, okay, I know that. And I'm not saying, and people work hard as well, but the emotional toll on us is more than any other job. I can't think that, maybe people who deal with people like that, the other jobs I can think about is people on the NHS. They're the same, on the front scene all the time. People go at them all the time. They don't have a break. It's relentless, coming all the time. That's hard. Yeah. That's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like, And that's something I've said before as well, about this idea that as teachers, most people accept that teachers, we're more than just people who deliver content. We're more than just someone who stands up and talks about our subject for an hour and then that's it. So we have that in loco parentis. We have responsibilities to meet the needs and keep the students safe in quite a lot of ways. But then when is the opportunity to do that? It frustrates me. I have a form and I'll be told again and again from leadership teams I've worked with, the form tutor is very important. I agree. They're the first port of call. I agree. I need to know my students really well. Absolutely. But then when is the time that I have to really listen to those students and to work with them? I mean, even in form time, I've got 20 minutes in form. I've got to do the register. Heaven forbid I don't do that.
Within 10 minutes?
Yeah, don't even get me started. But then I've got 15 minutes with a class of 26, 30 students. And I don't know, it'd be really nice if there was a bit of time built into the day that wasn't high pressure, where it was me and my form and we could, we had that opportunity to do that. But it seems like, again, and I've talked about it before, I've banged on about it before, people might be fed up of hearing it from me, but every minute is learning. Do now, teach to the bell. I don't know. You wouldn't treat adults like that, so why do we insist on treating students like it? So it's frustrating. Right, I've just got, before I forget, I'm just going to put up on the screen a code there.
Closing the door.
You guys watching while Jannick goes and gets the door. A code on the screen there. If you'd like to do some professional development by doing a little bit of reading, and it's something, I mean, we're going to talk about reading in a minute, and we're going to talk about the problems that people have had with reading. So John Cat Books. So get yourself over to the John Cat website, and you can use the code JCTTR2425, and that will get you 20% off some reading material there on the John Cat website. So make sure you check that out. So we are live on TTR. This is the Twilight Show, in case you've joined us recently. And I'm talking to Jannick, and you'll see, hopefully, that we are talking about a few topics. We'll try and stay on topic as best we can, but we're not promising anything. So we've talked a little bit about...
Sounds like a well-planned lesson.
It is. It's a well-planned lesson. It has been very well planned. Today's been a bit more hectic than I thought. But I just wanted... we'll move on to the send thing in a minute, because I do want to start talking about... Jamie Oliver it is, who is the celebrity chef who's been talking about, and again, he's upset some teachers as well, hasn't he? But just going back to, I just wanted to check I'd not missed anything on Alan Francis and some of his comments, because he'd made some other comments as well. He thinks that schools are bending over backwards with inclusion. He's worried about trauma-informed practice. Now, he is from further education, so I don't know how much experience this person has in secondary education, but these are just some of the things that he said. He says there's a lot of crackpot theories going around the inclusion world at the moment. Trauma-informed practice is one of these. So he's worried about trauma-informed practice. I think it's... there's this concern. It's always this balance, isn't there, Jannick? There's always this impossible tightrope that teachers have to walk between sanction and support. And it feels like we're in an impossible situation. There's absolutely no point in trying to please everybody, because it's not going to happen. So do you think the trauma, what's been your experience in terms of trauma-informed practices? Has that come into your CPD at all much?
Not really, not really as such, because it's kind of I suppose students with needs are picked up by, I suppose, RSC and department. So we do get updated, and students have passports. So as teachers, I would say, that it, what's happened is now we are now more aware of the students who've got different needs, and make sure that we cater for their needs. I mean, a lot of the time these are little things. I think students who have real issues, yes, we know them as well, and then what is difficult is when they destroy your lesson, as they can do very easily. Um, and then maybe the question is that should they be in shouldn't be in mainstream education if they've got so many issues. At the same time, yeah, well, it's good that we try to include them. And uh, again, it's quite interesting in schools that are quite strict, maybe seem to manage these students better than those who have no rules. Uh, but you will find that actually, I think on individual levels as well. So, I tend to be someone who's quite strict. So, the students will come quietly, and then uh, and then some of the students I see in other contexts, they're just awful, and they're not like that with me, because I manage them by having strict, having expectations. It's not easy. I've worked at it as well. It hasn't just come naturally, but um, so yes, I think there is that. The same student can play up someone and just be fine with others.
Yeah.
And it also means that when people in my classroom, if it's quiet, I've got the time to deal with everything, and it does feel like that. When a class is quiet, you just can't do everything, so you don't have to never have to shout, never. If someone needs a pen, they just wait a second, they get it. And I'm never in a rush, whereas sometimes when I observe people, it's mayhem. The kids are straight at the teacher at the start of lesson, and then and it's lost. And so
Yeah, I think that's really interesting what you're saying there. I think I've in the past, if I'm honest, not been as strict as I need to be, and it's something that I work on. And I found that when I do it over time, it does pay off. And this idea that you can soften boundaries. This is the thing that frustrates me, because you hear people say stuff like, why are you sweating the small stuff? Because that's just stressing the students out. And I always think, if only I could sit in a room with that person for a while and make them realize that little things really make such a big difference in a classroom. And understanding that, we occasionally get parents who don't always agree with what we say, let's say. And then it would be like, you're picking on my young man because he's done this. All he's done is screwed up a bit of paper and thrown it at someone. That's all he's done. Or all he's done is made a silly noise, or something like that. And what I don't think everybody realizes is all those little low-level things are catastrophic for learning. Absolutely catastrophic. And there's a comment come in which I'll have a look at in a minute, and that's the part that worries me, is that these people don't really seem to have much sort of an understanding of what it is we're achieving and why we're doing what we're doing. And yeah, so sorry, I got a bit distracted, but I just wanted to read this comment because it's interesting. So we've had a comment. Unfortunately, sometimes a glass ceiling is placed above students with labels, and I was going to put that back up. And this often inhibits their attainment. This could be as a result of the teacher's low expectations or students' lack of confidence. As practitioners, we need to move beyond those labels and teach to the top to ensure students make maximum progress. And that's, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. It's along the lines of what you were saying.
Totally, yes. I mean,
comment from somebody on Facebook there. That's really, really useful. So again, that's what you were saying earlier. It is our job to give these students, to an extent we can understand. We can say, oh yeah, that I understand, that's difficult, that's tough, but fundamentally we've got to give them opportunities that will break that cycle. If there is a cycle of crime, and that's the other thing that's come up recently, and it's something that gets mentioned in this article that Jamie Oliver, or about Jamie Oliver, I don't think he wrote the article, but it's about him, about the link to crime. And when you get into that cycle, what our job really is to do in an ideal world is to break that cycle, isn't it? To give students opportunities that they wouldn't necessarily have. I mean, I don't mean just us as teachers, but I mean at schools. That is our responsibility to give them those opportunities. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's true that we are guilty of looking at students as data. That's our system, unfortunately, and yes, we are highly accountable for our students' results, which is the big issue, and I think that does sometimes prevent us from helping the students like that. Yeah, that have a glass ceiling because they've got a target of 5, and you think, okay, target of 5, stay here, play it safe. Let's make sure we keep them in their place. Yeah, I totally agree on that. I don't necessarily think it's the teacher's low expectations. Yeah, it could be student lack of confidence. Yes, certainly, because their grade is decided by something. I mean, my son was like that. I suppose to an extent, his SAT scores went great for whatever reason. Now he's a high achiever, and yes, he was put in a bottom set in English in year 7. Of course, being a teacher, I wasn't too happy with that. So I emailed the teacher, and then I didn't quite know what to do because I didn't want to be that parent as well, which obviously I was. My son, and and I was thinking, oh my God, it's in a bottom set. It's never going to be able to. He got an 8 in English. And he was writing stories at the time. So yes, I mean she's totally right on that.
Yeah.
But it's also useful to have data. So it's, I suppose it's like it's like the whole Ofsted inspection. Is it necessary to have a judgment attached to your school? No, I think it's very damaging to me. But at the same time, is it useful for actually to improve things? So yes and no. It's I wish I had the answer to that, to all these things. Well, you see, that's the problem, is like when you don't have the answers, then you appear as not confident and people aren't interested. People rather have people confident in their mistakes rather than people, this is the usual people who doubt are just not great leaders, are they?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, that's what people think, but I think it makes more sense to be honest if you don't have a solution. Otherwise, you end up being called what some people would say snake oil salesman, wouldn't you? Someone who wants to go with a problem, and make a problem more than it is because they're going to benefit from the problem that they've created.
True, but as a leader of a school, you do need to make decisions, and you will make people unhappy, and then after that you decide as a teacher, can I work with that or can I not? But it's true that with the maths, it's become very difficult. I've got quite a few friends who are, if they apply for a job, they're looking if the school is part of a maths first of all, because they've had such bad experience. We've all had some terrible experiences with these, especially as you get older. And you're kind of more confident in what you want to do, what works, and at some point, can you take that amount of, like 25-year-old telling you how to teach and coming up with some great ideas that, that you experienced in the 80s, and you think, well,
this is the thing. It's it's important to be open-minded, but at the same time, you do, and I've been talking about this today. Or was it yesterday? I can't remember, when I put a tweet out about people who've been in the business for 25 years and the feeling that you've never quite lived up to what people want. I don't know. It's a funny one.
Yes.
I don't always feel like I'm trusted, and in terms of that, and it's an interesting one. You'd think, you know, I was trying to sort of equate that. We might be going a bit off topic, but I was trying to equate that with other professions. You know, if you're a plumber and for example, and you're very highly regarded and you're 25 years of experience, people aren't going to, are people going to be checking and saying, no, actually, you shouldn't do it like this, or no, you need to do more of this, or maybe they do. I don't know. There probably is more of that in a lot of professions and jobs, isn't there? People being paid to go and check what other people are doing.
Yes, I mean, I think in a lot of corporate jobs is the same, where basically, yes, as soon as you get a bit older, yeah, you're has been, you know, and then
Yeah.
yes, yeah, yeah, we don't necessarily value experience.
No, I don't think we do always as much as we should, and it is a measure of a good leader. I think if you meet a leader who doesn't mind being challenged, I think that's a good sign. I think it's a worry when you work with a leader who wants a yes man, because to me that's not leadership, that's micromanaging, and that doesn't work. So I'm just going to see if there's anything else on that. Yeah, I mean, they were the main things behind that particular article, and it was an interesting one. I mean, he did also mention, he said he's concerned about so-called behaviour management experts cashing in on young people's perceived mental health problems. His inbox is full of people writing to me with all kinds of snake oil. He mentions this term, snake oil. He's also concerned about a sense of learned helplessness among young people, particularly those who fail their English and maths GCSE, falsely believe that they're rubbish at them. So, I mean,
what I don't like very much is his tone. You know, I think in his position, you know that when you're gonna say stuff like that, you're obviously going to alienate a part of the profession and of the parents. So I think the tone is a little bit strong. Yes, I think there's, and you know, the problem is that there are quite a lot of things that he says that you could agree with, you end up not wanting to because of the way he says it. You know, like snake oil. Yeah.
We don't like the snake oil. We don't like the snake oil.
Yeah, that's a good word.
But you're right. If you're going to annoy people, but what he said is, oh, I might as well annoy everyone then, because he's annoyed teachers. He's annoyed people with special educational needs, and the parents of people with special educational needs, probably, because he's just been very, I don't know. He could have said it in a much more diplomatic way and got a lot more people on side.
You know, a lot of crackpot theories going around about the inclusion world at the moment. I mean, anybody who's kind of, and you know, there are people who do a great job at, you know, at that. So anybody who will have been in that will feel, we'll take that personally. Of course you would. You know, I mean, we do tend to take things very personally in teaching, even though we say to never take things personally. We are the first to take things personally. Yeah. I'm telling that to all my team, but trust me that I'm the first to take things personally. When something is said.
We really do, don't we?
Easy to say though, you know, easy to say to other people. All these things, I say them to everybody. You know, I don't take things personally. Like, and next thing is well, but yeah, it's not great. You know, like
No, it's, you pick your words very carefully, and it's when, I suppose the irony of it is, whenever I speak to students, my brain is always ahead of my mouth, you know. Well, usually. Does that sound like I'm showing off? So, yeah, well, it's not always. I can't say always is, but my point is, you know, you're just very careful with language, aren't you? Yeah. So if we're being very careful with language, and then we've got to listen to someone who wants to throw these tropes around, then, you know, I don't know if that's a great thing.
That is another thing that is draining, isn't it? Like 4 hours a day watching what you're saying, how you say it, all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then eventually you need some kind of sort of outlet to that. Just go in the garden and shout into the field or something, or scream into your pillow or something like that.
Yes,
But you're right. I mean, as as teachers are, you know, we've got to be tough in the classroom, and we are a little bit sensitive, I suppose, are we? Let's be honest. I mean, it's like I've said before, I can go on Twitter and get angry at someone who I didn't know existed 5 minutes before, and that's absolutely ridiculous. I shouldn't even be getting involved in these things. Right. I'm just going to mention the John Cat Bookshop before we then start going into our next topic. And I'm just trying to find some information on the screen for that, because as you may know, we are on Teachers Talk Radio and we are sponsored by John Cat Books. So if you guys listening are interested in some professional development, having a little read around, if you've maybe got to do a little bit of CPD with some teachers and you want to impress them by showing you the book you've read, I did that myself recently. Not something I do very often, but you can get yourself 20% off with the code that's on the screen there, which is JCTTR2425. So get yourself over there and have a look at that one. Right.
Let's do that, yes. Yeah,
let's do it. Yeah, absolutely. There's some good stuff in there, actually. Some really good authors in there. So we're just going to turn our attention to Mr. Oliver. Now, that was quite a good suggestion of yours, Jannick, about getting Mr. Oliver involved. Maybe not involved with the show. Maybe you can cook us something up later. That'd be nice.
Jamie Oliver, not Martin Oliver.
Oh, did I say Martin Oliver?
No.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
you said Mr. Oliver.
Mr. Oliver. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Jamie. That's the one. Yeah, my mate Jamie. But he said he's talking about specifically dyslexia, isn't he? So what was it about that you wanted to sort of get into, Jannick?
No, I can't remember. You know, it was more the reaction of people. He should like instantly say, he should shut up and focus on his cooking. Like classic, innit?
Classic. It is a classic. Can I just be honest? I nearly did. Because I've said before, I've gone and I've had a moan before on Twitter, as I usually do, to be honest, and it gets me. It's surprising how many people agree with me sometimes with my rubbish that I put on there. But I've mentioned before that there is a lot of interference, and I think I've mentioned it on here as well.
Yes.
Teaching gets a lot of interference, so it's very easy to look at Jamie Oliver's words and say, "Well, can you back off? We've got enough to do." But then when you actually dig into it, there isn't anything there. And somebody actually tweeted me back and said, someone who I've followed for a while and who follows me said, "Oh, I'm surprised by your reaction. I'm surprised by your opinion. I didn't expect you to think that." Because I'd actually softened to what Jamie Oliver was saying about dyslexia, and actually he seemed to be very much on the side of teachers. And what I found interesting about what he said is that he didn't read a book until he was 33 years old. He didn't properly read a book because of his dyslexia. He obviously struggled at school, found his own way, obviously became very successful, as we know. But he also talks about the link between dyslexia and permanent exclusion. There's another one to get into, permanent exclusion. But he says there's a link with that, and obviously there's a link with dyslexia and again ending up in prison. So yeah, it's very interesting. Do you think people like Jamie Oliver getting involved can be generally a good thing?
Well, I mean, he's done quite a lot of good things for. I mean, he tried to sort the food. Did you remember when he did his program? I thought he was amazing. At the end of the day, I think he cares, and that's what's important. And again, maybe you don't like what he says, and I'm not particularly offended or don't take it personally either. He's talking about his experience, and it's fine. I think we should. I mean, everybody has a contribution to make to education in a way. I think making these comments is the same. Well, maybe not, but it's like being a spectator watching a football match. Everybody's got their opinion. Everybody I'm not sure necessarily, that everybody's got their own idea. At the end of the day, there's the coach there's a coach there who's doing it, and you may not agree with them, and you may want things to improve. I don't know. I think it was interesting that so many comments were shut up and do your thing. I think I'm not sure why, like why would you be offended? I always find, I think we do, anytime that education is mentioned, we somehow take things very personally, us teachers. And I say us, sometimes I do as well, but it's like, it's like if you said something about the French, and I'm French, but I don't particularly think, oh, you've offended me and my country, well, if you talk about education, you talk about teachers. Well, I don't feel personally attacked if it's not me. I mean, I can, something is mentioned. So, and I've also worked with awful people in education. They are some truly awful people. Shocking, really. So yeah, they are in my profession, and if someone says they are awful teachers in education, I'll say yes, actually, yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously, I'm not one of them.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to say, well, well, how dare you say that? How dare you insult my profession? Well,
to be honest, that's good advice. Probably some advice I should take on board, if I'm completely honest, because you're absolutely right. We take things very personally, and we do get a reputation for not listening, don't we?
Yeah. Ironically, yeah. But that's because we are passionate as well. So sometimes you can't have everything. If you weren't passionate, then nothing would happen. Sometimes I think, I'm like that. I'm vocal and things like that. But then when people tell me, because I'm like somehow people will tell me to shut up and blah blah, and I'll say but okay. But I say that because I'm passionate. You've got to understand that as well, and that's fine. When it says, they've told me to shut up to passion, and then we move on. But I think it's very easy to get into arguments. We do that all the time. If we didn't, it'd be strange, wouldn't it? So it's kind of not. And the problem is that sometimes we just take it too far. It's because we don't give ourselves the time to slow down or take a seat back. And that's where the bit is dangerous, when you break the conversation or the debate, because then you become personal. And you do, because that's your way to get back at people. So
I wish I could put my hand on my heart and say I've never done that, because I'm sure I have.
I have as well. I mean, we're human as well. That's there's nobody there is virtuous. Some people think they are. Some people think they are, unfortunately, always right and always correct. And okay, good on them, But
it's very difficult to appreciate somebody else's point of view, isn't it? As and walking a mile in their shoes and everything. It's obviously.
And we deal a lot from our experience as well, which can be, vastly different. Like from the school I work now, and from the school my kids go to. Some of the things, my kids go to an outstanding school, and some of the stuff that I do in my school, there would be absolutely no need for that in their school. That as well, people don't realize that. So we've got to deal differently depending on the school. As well,
Yeah, I think so too. And obviously, being a parent as well, you are looking at it from those two angles, aren't you? And I think sometimes people might forget that teachers are also parents. But And like you say, we don't want to be the parent to create a fuss. But at the same time, when you're a parent, and you've taken off your teacher hat, and you're fighting for your child, and you can understand that people would want to do that. I do think there's a bit of a disconnect, though. I think the things that we're trying to do in school, and I'm bringing it sort of back round to behaviour again, because it's just something that rumbles on and on and on, doesn't it? So yeah, it's just a never-ending thing. So it's uniform, and it's zero tolerance things, and it's, you know, people are saying that we shouldn't be focused on those little things, but we can see the bigger picture. So yeah, I mean, our head teacher will say the first step towards being smart is looking smart. And
Yeah.
I don't think I can really argue with that, to be honest. But it's not, it's something that a lot of people want to really argue strongly against. And I suppose that's what frustrates me is I think you want to argue about this, but have you not seen this? What's going on over here? There's a much bigger problem over here. You're worrying about letting somebody wear black trainers, and actually I've got a class full of people who are failing. And it's, yeah, that's sometimes a bit of a frustration, because I think if you could get into a room and sit down with parents, I suppose that's where parent voice is important. Get them in, get their opinions, have opportunities for them to do it, I suppose.
Yeah.
So what else can we say about this Jamie Oliver thing? I'm just going to have a little look at it. So he wants, again, there isn't really anything controversial when you look into it. It says his main focus on the need for teachers to be better trained in the special needs that a quarter of each of their classes can have. So I think he's talking about the fact, and it mentions in here, roughly 10% of students could be dyslexic. He says specialists and scientists point out that teaching in ways and with materials that help children with dyslexia can help the entire class. No detriment is suffered by the majority by incorporating services from them as well. If anything, the introduction of multisensory learning and so on lifts all boats. So it's quite interesting. He's done his homework, to be fair to him. He's not just throwing. It's not just throwaway comments. He seems to have had a look into the issues that are there. He talks about the problems of funding in schools and the fact that he knows that that's a problem. He's certainly not blaming teachers. He's saying here are some statistics what I found interesting. Students with dyslexia are now 3.5 times more likely to be expelled. I've not heard the word expelled for, but that's the word they use in here, than those without. So 3.5 more times likely to be expelled. Expelled students are 200% more likely to get involved in violent crime. And an estimated 50% of prisoners have had a learning disability, often only identified once they are residing at His Majesty's pleasure. So
yeah.
What he's saying is he wants more focus on the diagnosis, I think, and more focus on supporting teachers with training and ways of teaching that can support dyslexia. I mean, it's very hard to disagree, to be honest, with anything he's saying.
I mean, there's no doubt that students who struggle to read, struggle to do math, how can they be engaged in school? But yeah, I think there should be some time taken to go back to the basics, because how do you want to move on when you don't have the basics? Yes, some kids who can barely read. I mean, you know, some of the last year when I was doing some support with some students, well, they couldn't understand the math questions. They couldn't read them. GCSE, they're doing GCSE. They can't even read the questions. I mean, what have we done wrong? What have we done for these kids for the past 2-3 years? They've been dragged along in classes where they haven't got a clue what's going on. So yeah, they become disengaged. They mess about. I mean, of course, yeah, I do believe that doesn't help them outside of lessons as well. I mean, you know, the link between, you know, dyslexia and exclusion or prison, I think, you know, it's the usual, you know, causation on, you know, is it really the reason? It can't be the only reason, but yeah, I mean, he's right. I'm very bad at I mean, I don't know much about dyslexia, and I know I teach dyslexic kids, and I don't know much about dyslexia. And the other day there was a girl who said, you know, I want to do languages at GCSE, but I'm dyslexic. And I was like, so? I said, well, can I learn a language? You know, and they just said, well, yes, yeah, of course. I mean, why not? And I said, I'll be honest, I just don't know enough. But you know, there's a lot of people who are dyslexic who are doing incredibly well. And you know, I was starting to, you know, I was a bit embarrassing because I just didn't know enough. And I said, you know, what does that mean for you? You know, being dyslexic. What is it in your everyday life? What do you struggle with?
Yeah.
And then we had an interesting conversation. But I thought, yeah, actually, I don't know what it means for a kid. You know, I've never asked that question to a kid. So, well, so what does it mean for you? How do you, you know, how can I help you? I've got, you know, a couple of, you know, student passport, do this, do that. But really, that's what I read, and I'm doing this without necessarily thinking about it, other than ticking my box. Oh, look what I do for him. You know, oh, he's got yellow paper. Yeah, I'm such a great teacher. Oh, he's got an overlay here. Oh, yeah, he's got special worksheet for him. Yeah. I've asked him an extra question. Did you notice? I'm such a great teacher. Catering for all the needs in my.
You're all singing, all dancing. Oh,
there you are. Tick, tick, tick,
boxes. You're ticking all the boxes there.
And it is a problem. And sometimes, we don't have time. So we do.
Yeah.
It's hard, isn't it? And there, yes, in that there could be more, but there are more people in schools and less. There's more people everywhere and less people to do the job. So that's, you know, that is
hard. It's hard to know. It's such a difficult thing. I mean, I do think about I'm just trying to think about a student who's just come into my mind, who I teach, who's a year 8, and his behaviour is really not very good, but I can tell that he's not being deliberately badly behaved. I can tell that he's not choosing that he wants to be badly behaved, but he can't on any level engage with the work. And I don't think he can really read very well. So he's probably avoiding work because he knows he's going to fail. And I'm not saying, I mean, it makes me think that's the sort of student we're talking about, isn't it? That we're thinking, why is this student misbehaving? And we say, right, we've got to clamp down on this behavior by giving the student a detention. But that student may not even know they're dyslexic. They may just think they're a bit stupid and they can't read. And it's, I don't know. This is, you know, this is blowing my mind a little bit, even thinking about it now, to be honest, because again, you're going to get, I don't want to fall foul of the chap we were talking about earlier, who when I'm making excuses for him now, aren't I? I wonder if he's pupil premium. He might be pupil premium, and now I'm making excuses for him because he's pupil premium. So, to see what I mean? It's an absolute minefield, isn't it? Because you won't. I don't think we'll ever win.
You know, you had John Bold the other day who was talking about his technique. That's quite interesting. That, you know.
Yes. And he's talking about having worked with dyslexic students. Maybe I might need to get him back on and to talk about that. But yeah.
Now he does one-to-one though. You know what I mean? That's the kind of stuff we need. You know, you can't. Well, I'm not sure if you can apply that to a class, but people like that one-to-one who can actually, you know. So, but he's also saying that what we do is not right, basically. But
well, it's hard. I mean, I'm interested to know, because as you said a minute ago, if someone said to you, how could you change your lesson or resources or the way you do things to support someone who's dyslexic? I don't think I could think of much. I suppose, if anything, I'd try and take away the need for lots of reading, but what they really need is more reading and practice. Maybe they need the visual support as well of the coloured paper. I think does make a little bit of difference. I think, ironically, black text on white is often the worst thing for them. Someone said to me.
Purple or lilac? That now you've got to be very careful. You know, purple is not lilac, and they are different shades. I mean, we got to a point with that, which was, you know, last year. I had a big issue with a student. I provided a purple paper when it should have been lilac, and I was like, okay.
Well, the only reason I know what lilac is because potassium burns with a lilac flame, and I know that that's pink in my book, but we call it lilac. So that's the only reason I remember it.
Yeah.
You stick potassium in, and it burns with a lilac flame. So that's how I'd remember it. But otherwise, I wouldn't have had a clue.
So interesting. So you see, lilac to me is the color of the flower, the tree, and it's purple. So, but yeah, I was wrong, obviously. Yeah. So there you are, and I was wrong.
Well, I don't know. You just prefer that color. It's just your preference. So yeah. But the colors can be a frustration. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I've got a problem with what Jamie Oliver's saying personally. I think that in a nutshell, I was a bit irritated to begin with. I did that typical teacher thing where I had a knee-jerk, what are you doing? Stop interfering with our profession. We know what we're doing, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And some of the abuse he then got about one of his restaurants had to close down, or I don't know. There you are. I don't know. Someone saw some mold on the cheese. I don't know. And then all the insults come out. That
was, well, no, that wasn't funny, but yes, that's classic, isn't it? You say something, and then of course he's a celebrity. He says something about another profession, and I say, well, would I say something about your cooking? Well,
yeah. I mean, it could be.
I wouldn't dream of giving you advice on that.
No, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But also, why not? I can have an opinion on cooking and food as much as he can have an opinion on my job. And
yeah,
he might tell me to shut up as well. What do you know about cooking?
Well, he might. He might be. Maybe chefs are a bit like teachers. If we start, I don't know, if we start having a go at how they make their pastry or something, maybe they do. Defensive.
They do have a big ego as well, don't they?
Of course they do.
Yeah,
so, of course they do.
You know what I mean? Yeah. We all do.
Yeah, let's face it. Right. We've just gone a little bit over an hour. I hope that I just want to thank people who have listened and watched along. If you've done so, if you've joined us, you've missed some interesting discussions on Teachers Talk Radio here on the Twilight Show, and I think we've probably covered quite a bit of ground there, Jannick. What do you think? Is there anything that sort of I've forgotten to mention?
No, I mean, we could talk forever. So
yeah, absolutely, and we'll probably chat a little bit in just a minute after the show. But yeah, we as you know, we're teachers. We like talking shop. I hope the people listening, it probably bores a lot of people and family members and so on, and that we do it. But
a friend of mine told me that the common name for a group of teachers was a bore of teachers.
You can understand.
Yes, I totally.
But we're not going to take that personally, Jannick.
No.
We're going to take our own advice.
It's no longer my friend.
Away, everyone listening, Jannick's advice for you to take away is we take things too seriously. We just need to chill out, guys. We just need to chill out a bit. I'll probably shut up. You should be saying that. Right. Okay, I'd just like to thank once again everyone for listening, and I want to thank also very much to Jannick for giving up his time once again this evening. I really appreciate it after a tough day that you've come and you've had a little bit of a chat, and we've covered some interesting topics. So thanks ever so much, Jannick, for coming on. It's really good to see you.
Thanks a lot.
And that's about it from us then, guys. So once again, thank you to everyone for listening. And I will see you hopefully again in a couple of weeks back here on Teachers Talk Radio on the Twilight Show. Have a great evening, everybody. Goodbye.
Outstanding and world-class vision and world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused.